40 for Rateable Crest Titans.
Welcome to the fifth round of the Comp Safari Interclub Championship, which heads to North Wales and the Bank Holiday Weekend event, hosted by North Wales Land Rover Club. Always a popular event with competitors, this one offers much more than just Monday's Comp Safari, but it's that aspect of the weekend that we will be concentrating on in the show today. As well as the regulars then in the championship, the event would also attract a number of crews for one-off outings and from other championships. And leading the way would be Chris Bird. Winner last time at this event, he would be looking to retain that title. And he was going to plan so far, leading the way with half a minute of a lead. Second to Bird at this stage would be Peter Roberts and Anthony Brinkman. They make a good start on the slippery course, enjoying it, but knowing that it could catch them out at any time. Second place for now, with a small advantage in that position themselves. And the driver behind would be this man, Kevin Stubbs, rounding out the podium positions this morning in third. The gap either side of him looking similar, but it was going to be a tough afternoon to maintain that, or indeed move further up our leaderboard. Still on the hunt, would you believe, for that elusive win, Mike Hannock would end the morning with fourth. He'd have a little way to go if he wanted to do it this weekend, but the championship was the most important thing to think about, and chasing Bird in the lead wasn't going to gain any more points. For Warren Roper, it would be fifth, a good start to the event with times coming down run by run. The conditions helping with that as it started to dry out. The early morning course certainly providing plenty of slippery places to slow the crews down. And one crew to have a bit of a moment through the opening run would be Stuart and Amber Winter, sliding into a ditch, but luckily without any issues. They end the morning with sixth place overall and in the class, and perhaps counting those lucky stars. Behind the Winters on the overall and class leaderboards would be Ken Powell, seventh place, but with almost a minute's gap to Winter up ahead. A few suspension adjustments since the previous round would be working well this weekend for Wyn Williams and Bert Buller. The feeling in the car was good, the pair ending the morning 8th place on our leaderboard. And there'd be a shared entry taking up our 9th place on the results for now. Dan Lofthouse and Gordon Monaghan each taking turns out on the course in their own cars. Gordon out in his familiar RS200 and Dan giving the Freelander a shakedown for France in a few weeks' time. Between them, they end the morning with 9th. Meanwhile, rounding out the top 10 at the midpoint of the event would be Jake Burgess, leading the way in Class 2 as well with that result. Steve Hill and Richard Canterbury will be taking the wraps off a new car this weekend. Their first time out in it, in fact, and they were finding it a big change from the old model. It would take some getting used to, but things were looking good so far in 16th. There'd be problems on the opening run of the day for Alec Fern and Darren Tansley. They break a shaft, resulting in running in rear-wheel drive. Not ideal, but the pair do start to knock the times down on the next runs of the day. Another first time out in a car this weekend, this time is for James Pate, and things were going well, lying second in Class 2 at this stage, 24th on the leaderboard. The problems would start before the event even got underway for Paul and Kyle Shaw, the car refusing to start scrutineering. Thankfully, with the help of fellow crews, they get things sorted, ending the morning 4th in the class, 32nd overall. And for Simon Rood, it would be the lead in Class 8. In fact, only one of 2 in the class still running this weekend. After overheating problems on previous rounds, a new rear-mounted radiator was helping things this weekend for Tim Padfield and Mike Petit. They were able to push from the start as a result, leading the way in Class 4. Second in that class and a few positions back on the overall leaderboard were Nigel Alcock and Millie Jones. They were happier now with how the car was performing after a season's worth of adjustments. Frustratingly though for them, a power steering pipe coming loose would slow them a little on the third run of the morning. You solve one problem, you find another. That's sometimes how it goes. Chloe Jones would have her sister Zoe in the co-driver's seat this weekend. The pair doing the event together in support of the Christie's charity. A bit of girl power dressed up as princesses over their race suits for it too. A puncture on the opening run of the morning though would really make them work for any result this weekend. But there would be worse problems still than losing a tyre for some of our crews. Tim Mangum and Dan Barron finally seem to be getting things right in the car, only for the suspension to break on the third run of the day, clearly visible from outside the car, and sadly preventing them from completing the course, having to call it an early finish. There'd be problems as well for Stephen Lindop. His issues clear to see as well, rolling the car on the third run of the morning and gaining a maximum time, but he would be back out in the afternoon to try and right that wrong. So we're midway through the event here in North Wales then. The leaderboard is starting to shape up a little bit like this. On we go then to the afternoon runs. Bit of drama through the morning, wasn't there? And for Matthew McLaughlin and Rob Townsend, it would be second place in Class 8 to end the event. New to Comp Safari this season, the pair were still getting used to the car. A snapped ball joint in the morning will put them out of action for a while, completing the runs through the afternoon though to take that class position. And it was a successful weekend for Chloe and Zoe Jones in regard to the fundraising, but sadly not so much on the course. They suffer with overheating issues, having to back off in order to save the car for their next outing in the British Championship. A disappointing end, but still happy with how things had gone. And still there'd be no change in the lead of Class 8 in the afternoon. Simon Rood happy to take that class victory this weekend in 39th overall. Some of the tighter corners on the course were causing some issues for the bigger cars. Nigel Alcock and Millie Jones, one of those crews struggling. They end the event though crucially with second in Class 4 and a result that puts them 10th overall in the championship after this round. It would be a successful weekend meanwhile for Tim Padfield and Mike Petit. Mike remembering the course well, allowing the pair to push for a good result, and they get it as well, taking the victory in Class 4 with 33rd overall. There'd been no change for Bill Hewitson through the afternoon though. He ends the event second in class, 31st on the leaderboard. The afternoon, however, hadn't gone quite to plan for Michael Baisley and Chris Doyle. A broken driveshaft on the fourth run would see them slip down the leaderboard. They do make it back up a little by the end of the event though, finishing with third in Class 2, 29th overall. And just like the rest of Class 6, the lead wouldn't change in the afternoon either. James Lyle ending the event with that class win, and well deserved it was too this weekend. Daffyd and Sam Roberts would be another crew to struggle with the tighter hairpins, unfortunately losing a good few seconds each lap with that. They do end the event well though, second in Class 2. Simon Lee and Jonathan Wood would be just happy to reach the end of the event, having completed all of their runs. It wasn't the way they would have wanted to end though. Visibility not great through a taped up windscreen from that earlier roll was less than ideal. But they do get it to the finish, and they do take home 23rd overall for their efforts. Things had gone to plan though for Paul and Kyle Shaw this weekend. A bit of an overheating problem on the last two runs of the day wouldn't be the best end to the event, but they do take the Class 2 victory this weekend. Perhaps a bit of work to do on that car before the next round. Throttle problems on the first run of the day would be what held Becca Clarkson and Simon Kerfoot back this weekend. Having to stop and try and get it fixed at the side of the road, they do make up for it a little in the afternoon, climbing up to 20th on the leaderboard. Now, despite those Run 1 issues, it would be a good result for Alec Fern and Darren Tansley. Third place in Class 3 for the pair this weekend, 14th overall. There's no change at the top of Class 3 though. Luke Sagar taking second in that class here in North Wales. And of course, that means it's the class victory for Keith Lynham. keeping hold of that lead to the finish, but only just 1 second the difference as they crossed the line. Jasmine Philpott and Pete Widdup started the day well, but a broken gearbox on the third run of the day would give them a lot to do in the lunch break in order to get the car back out in the afternoon. A tough day though, but they do manage it, ending the day rounding out the top 10 overall. A puncture on the final lap of the day would lose Gary and Bethany Bull some time. Thankfully though, a strong result for the pair still as they end the event in 9th on the leaderboard. Power steering issues had been an ongoing thing throughout the day for Steve Hill and Richard Canterbury, especially on the tighter sections. Bigger forearms than they started the day with. Despite that, it had all gone well to end the event with 8th. And it had also been a trouble-free run this weekend for Wynne and Megan Williams on their home event. The car performing well on the challenging course, and the pair ending the weekend with a very strong 7th place. Ken Powell brings it home in 6th, a good finish, although a little way back from the crews up ahead. The shared entry of Dan Lofthouse and Gordon Monaghan would see the weekend, with them filling out the number 5 slot on the results. The pair having shared the runs, of course, in their respective cars. An unusual way of doing things, but pretty successful, both going well this weekend. For Warren Roper, it will be 4th place this weekend, a good end to the event and one that adds some good championship points to the tally. Of course, it's all about the championship at this stage in the season. Frustratingly though, things didn't go to plan for Stuart and Joshua Winter. A good result out of the window with a broken gearbox on the 4th run of the day. And there'll also be some late issues resulting in some drama for Peter Roberts and Anthony Brinkman. They dropped time with a fuel pump issue. Actually, a loose earth wire found to be the cause. The lost time also losing them the chance of retaining the championship this year, and from something so simple. That change for Roberts, though, would mean Mike Hannock ends the event on the final step of the podium. Not the victory that he came here for, perhaps, but some good points from this round. For Kevin Stubbs, it will be maximum points this weekend, the highest championship finisher here in North Wales. It's another maximum haul of points then towards that championship campaign with 2 rounds remaining. But taking the overall event victory this weekend would be this man, Chris Bird, putting his name on the top at the event once again after a clean run to take a 2-minute advantage by the finish. A dramatic weekend then here in North Wales. Here's confirmation of the final results at the North Wales Land Rover Club hosted event, round 5 of the Comp Safari Interclub Championship. The 6th round then of the Comp Safari Interclub Championship would see the crews head back to Stone. This time though, there would be a difference. It would be a 2-day event, which meant that runs would take place in the dark. The first day of the competition then would start with the usual contenders fighting it out at the top of our leaderboard. Today it would be advantage Peter Roberts. The times were close though, as we'd come to expect this season so far. A 2-second advantage in that lead position. Not seeming phased at all though with the night runs this evening. Second place, and chasing hard at the end of the opening day of the competition, would belong to this man, Kevin Stubbs. 2 fastest times and an equal fastest time with our leader, which showed just how close this fight was. 35 minutes of racing, and the pair separated by just those 2 seconds. So it would all be to play for on day 2. For Mike Hannock, it would be 3rd, a little further back on the times in that position though, 26 seconds back from Stubbs to be exact. There were no issues, just losing a few seconds per run, especially as the crews got into the dark, perhaps just needing a little time to build up confidence to push as much when there wasn't as much light. Just outside our podium positions at this stage then would be Warren Roper. He was just over a minute off the lead, but as we'd seen in the previous rounds of the championship this year, anything was possible. He would be pushing back in the daylight on day 2, making sure he was there to take a podium position if one was available. And it would be an early class lead for Paul Rowlands on day 1. A good lead in that class as well. He ends the day 5th overall as well as that class 8 lead position going into day 2. For Dave Cotterill, it would be 6th. A good start and some good times being put on the board as well, getting faster as the day went on. Retirement at the previous event would be something that Ian Childs and Andy Wolsey didn't want to repeat. It would be on their mind, of course, though. An engine oil leak on this round was causing a bit of concern. They need to keep a close eye on that. For now, though, it was all going to plan beside those mechanicals, the pair ending the day with the lead in Class 2 as well as 7th on the leaderboard. A broken drive shaft, meanwhile, the only issue for Ollie and Phil Booth. And thankfully, it wasn't losing the pair much time. They do keep knocking the buggy out of gear. But overall, things were going well. 2nd place in Class 8, 8th place on our leaderboard. 9th at this stage would belong to a cautious Gareth Taylor. He ends the day with 2nd in Class 2, about a minute between himself and the class lead going into the 2nd day of the competition. And rounding out the top 10 would be Simon and Danny Cooper. We hadn't seen this pair on the previous round because, well, simply they hadn't passed our cameras before retiring. This time, as you can see, things were going better, although a broken diff would need some repairs and some runs to be caught up later in the day in order to keep them in the running. A proper endurance event then, this one here at Stone, and it reaches its midway point, most of the crews surviving the dark. The results at the top of the leaderboard are starting to shape up. They look, at the moment, like this. We head out once again onto the course here at Stone for the 2nd day of the competition then, and there'd be a big change. The weather overnight, transforming the course into a waterlogged and much more challenging mudbath, you might argue. But despite this, it would be a finish for Joe and Rupert Asprey. Their service crew had straightened the car after that roll yesterday, and with the help of fellow competitors, they were back out to claim a 4th place in class from 31st on the leaderboard. A few more setup changes for this event had transformed the car on the rough sections for Nigel Alcock and Millie Jones. There was a small issue with the power steering pump that wasn't causing them much lost time this weekend, but it would be something to change for next time out, and it was on their mind, of course. They end the event, though, nevertheless, with 2nd in Class 4, continuing that record of finishing on the podium in the class on every round of the championship so far this season. Frustratingly for Ashley Bartlett, there'd be no holding on to that class lead, but it would still be a welcomed 2nd place in class on this challenging 2nd day. And there'd be no change at the top of Class 4. John Hewitson holding on to that class lead to the end of the event, taking victory there and ending the event with 25th overall. A class win chalked up for Bill Hewitson too, taking that lead from Bartlett and holding on to it to the finish, 23rd place overall. For Charlotte and Dave Plant, it would be a good weekend. Only Charlotte's 3rd comp safari. They were happy with the times. They did have a bit of an intermittent four-wheel drive issue on the opening day. Thankfully, not on the muddier day 2 though, ending the event 21st overall and 8th in the class. This weekend will be the first time in the driving seat for Kyle Shaw, with a very brave, it has to be said, Mother Carol in the co-driver's seat. The times, though, were looking good, although a wiper failure on the opening run in the wet on day 2 was less than ideal. Apart from that, it will be a trouble-free weekend, ending the event 19th overall. No change in the class, meanwhile, for Matthew Booth. 2nd place would be his at the end of the event, as well as finishing in 14th place overall. On to the top 10 then, and it will be a very happy Tim Mangum and Dan Barron rounding out our top 10 overall. Happy with that result, and even happier to be at the end of the event without any major drama. They do have a slipping clutch towards the end of the runs, and it was causing a bit of concern in the latter ones, as you could imagine. But they make it to the finish with third in the class, 10th place overall. It was fair to say things had gone to plan for Dale and Lucy Gilbertson, out this weekend for some seat time ahead of the Hill Rally, and they were clearly on the pace despite a lack of time out this season. First in Class 3 would be theirs, as well as 9th on the leaderboard. For Ian and Dan Gibbons, there'd be some crucial time gained on the second day, moving them into the top 10 to take 8th overall, as well as 3rd in Class 8. And Simon and Alex Cooper would be glad to cross the finish line on that final run after retiring early into run 1 last time out. The only way was up, of course, and this was certainly that. 7th place overall at the finish. 3rd in class would be a very welcomed end to this endurance event. They get the fastest time in the class over the weekend as well, giving them some good points to add to their championship campaign ahead of the final round. Gareth Taylor gains a couple of positions on the overall results on day 2, but the class result would remain the same. 2nd place in Class 2 to end the event this weekend, as well as 6th overall. And it would be a strong finish to the event for Ollie and Phil Booth. More than happy with the times. They take 2nd in Class 8 this weekend, as well as 5th on our overall leaderboard. Ian Charles and Andy Wolsey don't do anything silly now that the course was so slippery. They keep it steady and they choose to get round that course to the finish. Thankfully though, it was enough to keep them in the top of our results. 4th place overall after those strong early times and taking the Class 2 victory. On to the podium positions then, and it would be a 3rd place finish for Paul Rowlands. A great end to the event to take that final step on the podium, and of course, the Class 8 lead with it. There'd be a bit of last drama in the leaderboard here as well. A big change at the top. We lose Mike Hannock from the podium positions. He gains a maximum on the final run of the event, that time dropping him down to 12th place at the end of the event. And there'd be still more change at the top of those podium positions on day 2 as well. What did we say about things not always staying the way they looked on the first day? The leader from day 1, Peter Roberts, would slip down the order slightly, ending the event 2nd place. A great result still, of course, but not the victory that he would have wanted or that he set out of the blocks with. And of course, that does mean it's victory for Kevin Stubbs this weekend. Not only that, but those points from the weekend were enough to confirm Stubbs as our 2019 champion with 1 round remaining. A strong end to what had been a tough season, getting his name back on the trophy for the first time since 2013. Here's your confirmation then of the results here at the penultimate round of the championship. Congratulations to Kevin Stubbs, his name back on that championship trophy. A win for him, but with 1 more round remaining, things are far from over just yet. There are still plenty of class and overall results to be decided, and we will see you there to decide them.